Geordie, not accustomed to being kept waiting about on doorsteps, felt his temper snap.
"Wheat, man, you're a poky one. Just give the lass the card. Let her ask the questions."
The butler, recognising a voice of authority even when dressed in a Scottish brogue, admitted him, placed his card on a salver, and asked Geordie to wait in the library. It was not a long wait. Geordie had barely time to study the room, a high-ceilinged chamber with tall windows and book-laden shelves climbing to the rafters, before the butler returned.
"Miss Walcott will see you in the study, my lord,"
he murmured, and he led the visitor down a long hallway to the very last door.
"Lord Dunvegan,"
he announced, and stood aside. Geordie crossed the threshold and stopped short. As the butler discreetly took his leave, Geordie gaped at the young woman rising from behind a desk. She was not at all what he expected. She was certainly not a beauty. His impression was rather that of a schoolmarm than a pretty girl. Small and rather thin, her hair that Archie had so glowingly described was pulled severely back from her face in a tight bun. Her supposedly golden brown eyes with their unbelievable lashes were hidden behind a pair of large spectacles, and her gown with its high neck, severe white collar and long sleeves did not hide the fact that her figure was almost flat. In Scotland, she would never be called sonsy. Only her mouth, ripe and cherry red, lived up to Archie's besotted description. "Lord Dunvegan?" she was asking as she came around the desk.
"Yes, ma'am, but I fear I've interrupted you in your work."
"That's quite all right. I'd almost finished for the day. If, as I suspect, you were acquainted with my father, you've probably guessed I'm trying to finish his translation of the Antigone." She studied his face carefully, blinking in a puzzled way at the wild red hair and boyish face, before putting out her hand. "You were an acquaintance of my father's, were you not?" she asked dubiously.
"No, ma'am,"
he said, taking her hand and bowing over it.
"I'm a friend of Sir Archibald Halford."
She stiffened. "Of Archie's?" She removed her fingers from his grasp and peered at him through her spectacles even more closely. Then her brow cleared. "Oh, I see. I suppose he wants his letters back."
"Letters?"
"He only wrote 3 or 4. She went back to the desk and rummaged through a drawer. "I don't know why I saved them. They aren't very good. He can barely spell." He laughed.
"I've never heard that poor spelling is a reason for jilting a lad, ma'am," he said, following Archie's suggestion that he use his Scottish brogue to its fullest melodious effect.
She looked up at him sharply. "What did you say?"
"I said, Miss Walcott, that I never heard of spelling being a qualification for wedlock."
He grinned at her in what he hoped was a disarming manner, but she responded with a forbidding frown. He shrugged.
"Ah, well, I suppose it wasn't worth repeating."
"No, it wasn't," she said icily. "Here are the letters. Take them, please, and go."
"I didn't come for any letters, ma'am. I came to talk to you about your feelings for Archie."
"Did you indeed?" The girl drew herself up to her full height. "That's a bit high-handed, is it not? You and I are not even acquainted."
"No, ma'am, we aren't, but I know Archie well, and I can assure ye there isn't a finer fellow in all of London."
"Can you indeed?"
"Yes, ma'am, I can. I truly believe that any lass would be fortunate to have such a fine fellow for a husband."
"Do you indeed?" Geordie paused and cocked his head at her.
"Indeed, ma'am, it seems that you're indeeding me a thoch too many indeeds. Are you meaning something special by them?"
"Indeed I am. They mean that I don't care for your presumption, my lord."
"Presumption?"
"Yes, presumption. That's the proper word, I think, for the interference of a stranger who accosts me in my own home and presumes to advise me whom to marry." Geordie was not surprised at the girl's show of irritation. He hadn't expected this interview to be easy, but since he considered himself adept at dealing with the moods and whims of females, he was not discomposed. Besides, he owed Archie 15 minutes of sincere effort, and 15 minutes Archie would get.
"I'm sorry, ma'am."